10 years after getting married, I received a call from my 18-year-old wife on our wedding anniversary. Once again, she took our daughter and her male assistant out for a trip. I finally felt disheartened and decided to get a divorce. After signing the divorce agreement, and while packing up my things, I heard a vibration sound coming from the corner. I opened the drawer and found the old phone I used 12 years ago. A somewhat familiar phone number was being displayed on the screen. I trembled as I answered, and a familiar young woman's voice came through. "Hey, George, I have something to tell you." I stood there holding my phone, and there was no sound on the other end of the call. I asked in confusion, "George, are you listening?" This voice was very familiar to me. It was 18-year-old Mary. In an instant, memories flooded over me like a surging tide. 12 years ago, it was at this time that Mary called to confess her feelings to me. I forced down the panic in my heart and, with a dry throat, struggled to say a few words. "What do you want with George?" Mary's voice suddenly stopped, hesitantly asking, "Who are you?" I acted as if I hadn't heard her question and continued. "Are you looking for George because you plan to confess your feelings to him?" On the other end of the phone, Mary coughed lightly as if a bit surprised. "How did you know?" Indeed, I slowly closed my eyes, desperately pushing back the bitterness deep in my heart. "Don't confess your feelings. In 12 years, you will have broken his heart." Mary paused briefly and then responded firmly, "Absolutely not." Even through the phone, I felt like I could see the 18-year-old, youthful, and beautiful Mary, who must be wearing a face full of disdain at this moment. At that time, her love was fiery and pure. Who could have imagined what time would turn her into? I was lowering my eyelids, just about to explain things to her when the door suddenly opened. I hurriedly hung up the phone, quickly stuffed the old phone into my pocket, and pretended that nothing had happened. Just before hanging up, I seemed to hear Mary mumbling softly on the other end. "Forget it, there's no time. I'll talk to him next year." I didn't pay much attention. Just as I put my phone down, Mary rushed in. As soon as she entered the room, she headed straight for the wardrobe and started rummaging through it. "George, did you see my gift box?" "George," she called me several times, but I pretended not to hear and continued to pack my things. Finally, she yanked open my room door and collided with me just as I was about to step out. She was taken aback for a moment, then frowned and asked, "Why are you packing things up? Where are you going?" I lowered my eyelids and handed the divorce agreement in my hand to her. "Mary, let's get a divorce." Mary frowned even more tightly. "Divorce? Because of Tom? I've told you before there's nothing between him and me. If there was something going on, I would have divorced you a long time ago." I've heard this line no less than 20 times. My ears are getting calloused. If I hadn't accidentally seen her phone, how would I have known that my wife, who shared the same bed with me for many years, has been in frequent contact with that assistant named Tom? Every day, for the past 5 years, they have been perfectly in sync as partners at the company and inseparable dining companions in the cafeteria. Everyone in the company knows that they have a good relationship, and there are even people in a company group teasing Tom as the prospective son-in-law, to which Mary can still laugh and respond. But every time I questioned her, she would frown and impatiently say, "Just a few jokes. Do you really need to take it so seriously?" I found this remark quite annoying. If you like Tom, sign the paper, and you can be with him openly from now on. "George, when did I ever say I liked him?" Mary suddenly raised her voice and snatched the divorce agreement. "Besides, where can you go after divorcing me? You're already 30, haven't worked for 7 years, and have long been out of touch with society. Who would want you in the job market now? How will you support yourself?" Her words struck me like a heavy hammer hitting my heart, filling me with deep sorrow. 7 years ago, I prepared for an interview with Mary at a leading company in the city. Who would have thought that the day before the interview, I got into a car accident while helping Mary buy fruit, resulting in a fractured calf bone. I lay in bed for 3 months. Mary went to that interview alone. On the day she was accepted, she held me tightly and comforted me for quite a while. She said, "George, I know the trouble started because of me. Now that my career is just beginning and the child is still small, you should stay home and take care of the child. I will earn money to support the family in the future." As soon as I thought of this, my nose tinged with bitterness, and I opened my mouth intending to refute, but the words got stuck in my throat, and I couldn't say anything. She tore the divorce agreement into pieces a few times, and only then did the anger on her face slowly fade away. "George, today I'll just take what you said as nonsense, and don't bring it up again in the future." She turned to leave, then looked back and asked, "By the way, where'd that gift box go?" I drooped my eyelids and whispered, "The bottom shelf of the wardrobe in the dressing room." "Good." She took the exquisite gift box out of the cabinet, and as she stepped out the door, her footsteps paused for a moment. "Wait at home. It'll come back as soon as possible to celebrate our wedding anniversary with you." A hint of a mocking smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. It turns out she still remembers that today is our wedding anniversary. I saw the gift box she took yesterday. That was a Hope 2 tour suit that I had always wanted but couldn't bear to buy because it was too expensive. When I opened the gift box, I was filled with joy, thinking it was an anniversary surprise for Mary. Only after I took out the suit did I realize it wasn't my size at all that moment. I saw a greeting card in the box. It turns out that from beginning to end, it was all my own infatuation. The fact that she changed her heart is also the reason why I am determined to get a divorce. It might be the influence of that previous phone call. I subconsciously took out my phone and scrolled to the call log from when Mary confessed to me back then. Upon closer inspection, I was stunned. The date on the call log had surprisingly changed from 12 years ago to 11 years ago. I suddenly recalled what Mary said before hanging up the phone. "Forget it. It's too late. Let's talk to him next year." I was filled with astonishment. Could it be that 18-year-old Mary could actually change the present? I was deep in thought when my phone vibrated again. I picked it up and heard Mary's voice. "Who are you and why are you holding George's phone?" In a moment of impulse, I blurted out, "I am a god able to foresee the future. I am a materialist and do not believe in gods or ghosts." I was taken aback by her words. Then she said, "However, I would like to hear your predictions. What do you know? If I tell her, will it change that matter?" I looked at the gruesome scar on my hand and decided to give a try to see if I could rewrite the past. On the second day of George's birthday, he will encounter a robber on the way home, and his hand will be cut by a knife. As soon as I finished speaking, Mary immediately replied, "Okay, I will pay attention." After saying that, she hung up the phone. I put my phone away, looked at the time, and it was already past midnight. Mary and her daughter hadn't come back yet. If it were usual, I would definitely be anxious and wouldn't go to bed until they got home. At this moment, I calmly washed up and went to bed. The next morning, the house was still empty, and the mother and daughter surprisingly did not return all night. I felt no turmoil in my heart, but when I raised my hand, I saw that the skin on the back of my hand was intact, without a single scar. I immediately widened my eyes. Suddenly, a completely new memory burst into my mind. The day after my 18th birthday, I was walking home as usual when I unexpectedly encountered robbery. Just as the robber was wildly waving the knife, Mary suddenly appeared, followed by several police officers who immediately subdued the robber. I didn't expect that the past could really be changed. I was both surprised and delighted, unable to hold back my laughter. My eyes filled with disbelief, and my eyes began to heat up as tears fell down. Immediately, the phone vibrated again. Mary was calling. As soon as I connected, I heard her voice trembling with excitement. "Thank you, I saved him." I didn't hesitate at all and immediately asked, 18-year-old Mary, "Then are you willing to save George one more time?" She immediately responded, "What? Is something going to happen again? What should I do?" "Don't confess. Stay away from him, the farther the better." Although separated by the phone screen, I can guess that the girl on the other end is definitely looking confused and questioning. Sure enough, she immediately asks why. Because after being together, I will hurt the future him deeply. The girl immediately retorted, "Impossible. I like George so much." Today, George scraped his wrist, and I accompanied him back and forth to the hospital to treat the wound. He feels a little unwell. Even if it's just a sneeze or a slight fever, my heart feels like it's being twisted by a knife. Just like encountering that knife-wielding robber today, it was so frightening. As a girl, I was so scared that my legs went weak. But for him, I still mustered the courage to rush forward. I knew in my heart that he was my life. How could I ever hurt him? Listening to her assertive words, the beautiful memories of the past unfolded before my eyes like a series of slowly opened mystery boxes. 18-year-old Mary treats me as the most precious treasure in her life. 30-year-old Mary speaks to me in a sharp and cutting manner, without any mercy. I lower my eyes and sighed softly. A person's heart will eventually change. Then you tell me, how did I hurt him in the future? As soon as she said this, my fingertips suddenly paused, and scenes flashed through my mind like a movie. For a moment, I didn't know where to start. Just then, my phone suddenly rang nonstop. I answered it, and on the other end, someone said hurriedly, "Mr. George, our department is having a team-building event at the bar in the east of the city today. Mary has had too much to drink. Could you come and take her home? Oh, by the way, your child is also here." The other end of the phone was chaotic, noisy enough to give someone a headache, and from time to time, there were sounds of things being thrown. I felt a tightness in my heart. An ominous premonition surged within me, and I hurried over. On the way, Mary's words, "Then why don't you tell me how I hurt him in the future?" kept playing in my mind like a loop. Seeing that we were almost at the place, I gritted my teeth, unlocked my phone screen, and dialed 18-year-old Mary's number. "Mary, just listen well. Think about what foolish things you have done at the age of 30. I walked into the bar and immediately saw Mary fiercely tugging at a woman. The scene was in chaos, with tables and chairs overturned and cups and plates shattered all over the ground. Just as I was about to step forward to pull Mary away, her secretary was quick to react and grab me, saying, "Mr. George, please don't go over there. What if you accidentally get hurt?" I frowned, filled with doubt. She isn't usually like this. What's going on today? The secretary hung her head and said, "Just now, 2 women insisted on having Tom accompany them for drinks. Mary has a quick temper and got angry right away, and things escalated." Before she finished speaking, she looked up and saw me, her expression suddenly becoming flustered and guilty. She quickly changed her words. "Mr. George, I was just talking nonsense. Please don't be angry." My gaze turned to Mary at that moment. My pupils instantly constricted. My 6-year-old daughter, I don't know when she ran over to Mary, still clenching her little fists, waving at that woman. "They'll beat you up for bullying Uncle Tom." The woman was furious and jumped up in rage, grabbing a nearby bottle of wine, raising her hand to smash it on her daughter's head. Instinctively, I rushed over without a second thought. At the critical moment, I held my daughter tightly in my arms, and the falling wine bottle crashed against my back with a clang, sending glass shards flying everywhere. My back immediately felt warm. Blood oozed out, and as soon as I moved slightly, the tearing pain felt like a drill boring into my bones. I couldn't help but let out a muffled groan from the pain. At that moment, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, "Oh no, Thomas fainted." Without a second thought, Mary kicked the woman in front of her to the ground and then, as if she didn't see me, quickly turned and plunged into the crowd. Tom, wake up." Tom lay there, completely still, showing no signs of waking up. Someone quickly explained, "Just now, Tom was actually trying to hug the child, and we don't know if he was hurt by the flying debris." Mary was anxious, urgently calling on those around her to help support Tom as they rushed outside. My daughter widened her eyes, looking at me in surprise, and asked cheerfully, "Dad, are you here to take me home?" Before I could answer, she struggled hard to break free from my embrace. She ran in the direction Mary had gone, shouting as she ran, "Mom, wait for me. I want to take care of Uncle Tom, too." I stood in place, my face pale, watching the mother and daughter walk further and further away, a chill running through my heart. I originally thought that even if Mary and her daughter leaned towards others, they would at least consider me a little. I didn't expect that reality would hit me hard. They didn't take me seriously at all. It's quite sad to think about. Even though she's no longer my lover, we have spent so many years together, so there must still be some affection left, right? I gritted my teeth and forced myself to stand up. The secretary, Sharpe, immediately walked towards me. "Mr. George, how are you? I saw you block that bottle of wine." Saying this, she hurriedly came forward to help me, and as she did, she suddenly exclaimed, "Your injury is too severe. Your back is covered in blood. How could Mary not see that you were hurt?" After that, I was taken to the hospital by the secretary and only returned home after the wound was treated. As expected, Mary and her daughter did not come back. I opened that old phone and took a look. I didn't even know when the call was disconnected. In a little while, the phone vibrated again. I answered the call and heard Mary's voice. "You are the future George, right?" I trembled. My fingertips said nothing and took it as an acknowledgement. 18-year-old Mary then asked, "You told me before that in the future I would." I speak harshly to George. "These are not predictions, but things you have already experienced yourself." I forced a self-deprecating smile at the corner of my mouth and said, "Yes, George, the future me has let you down. So you asked me to stay away from you, right?" "Yes." Mary was silent for a while and finally asked me, "George, you regret marrying me, don't you?" I took a deep breath and calmly replied, "Yes, I regret it." "Okay, I understand." After saying that, she hung up the phone. I felt like my chest was being pressed by a heavy stone, suffocating and anxious. That feeling of suffocation comes in waves. I don't know how 18-year-old Mary will ultimately decide, but for now, I have to plan for my future days. I really don't want to keep dragging this out with Mary. I don't want a wife or a daughter anymore. I took off the heavy, blood-soaked nightgown and changed into a clean outfit. She picked up a suitcase that had been packed long ago and printed another copy of the divorce agreement from the copier. Just as she finished signing and put down her pen, the front door was suddenly pulled open with a bang, and Mary walked in with her daughter, dragging her weary body, Sammy, holding the box. Her anger flared up immediately. "George, you're already 30 years old. Can you stop doing such childish things as running away from home?" With a glance, she saw the divorce agreement on the table, and a smirk appeared at the corner of her mouth, full of sarcasm. "Did you print another copy? Are you that eager to leave me?" I looked at her calmly and said, "I'm serious, Mary. I don't love you anymore. I can't go on with you. Let's get a divorce." Mary's eyes widened as she stared at me, and finally, in a fit of anger and embarrassment, she laughed out loud. "Let me tell you, divorce is impossible in this lifetime." Saying this, she reached out to grab the divorce agreement, pretending to tear it up. Again, I was anxious and immediately rushed over to try to take it back. I never expected that I would directly pass through Mary, missing her completely and almost falling. I was astonished, frantically holding on to the table. Immediately after, with a buzz in my head, it felt like it was about to explode as a wave of brand new memories surged in. 18-year-old Mary actually rejected my confession. Mary once told me that she likes to put two important days on the same day, like our anniversary and my birthday. However, on my 18th birthday, I waited a long time but did not receive Mary's confession. Seeing that our interactions were becoming fewer after graduation, I took the initiative to express my feelings to Mary. Unexpectedly, Mary not only rejected my confession, but also applied to a completely different university than mine. She made her attitude clear. No matter how much I questioned her or begged her to tell me the reason, at that time, she remained tight-lipped. At that time, I didn't know the reason, but Mary's abrupt change in attitude became my inner demon. Later, during my university years, I had many suitors who were. Her voice trembled slightly, almost imperceptibly. I slightly furrowed my brows, then quickly returned to normal. As expected, Mary and Tom's speeches received a round of applause. I clapped along with the crowd and caught a glimpse of Mary and Tom sitting in the second row. My seat was just right to see her profile. I saw Tom thoughtfully twist open a bottle of water and hand it to Mary, watching her smile sweetly. I quietly withdrew my gaze and redirected my attention back to the stage. After the lecture, I left with two students. I chose an exit with fewer people with them, and just as I stepped out of the conference room, my arm was suddenly grabbed by someone. I turned around and happened to meet Mary's restrained gaze. I have something to discuss with you. After greeting the students, I was pulled by Mary to walk in the opposite direction for quite a while until we reached a deserted corner. I could no longer tolerate it and shook her off. You can say whatever you have to say here. Mary looked at me with cold eyes and said, I'm asking you what's going on now. Why did I suddenly move from home to the office? My heart trembled. Suddenly, I suppressed the shock and panic in my heart, pretending to be calm as I spoke. What are you saying? I don't understand. Mary's eyes dimmed. What exactly happened between us 12 years ago? I raised my eyebrows and retorted, 12 years ago, you not only rejected my confession, but also deliberately applied to a different university than mine. Have you forgotten? Mary's gaze was fixed on me as if she wanted to find some flaw in my face. She indeed remembered that there seemed to be such a thing, but she clearly remembered that she had already married George and even had a daughter. But when she came to her senses, she found herself standing in the office. When she recounted what she had just experienced, everyone looked at her as if they had seen a ghost, saying that she had never been married, let alone have children. Thinking of this, Mary tentatively asked me, Do you still remember that we have a child? I pretended to be surprised and opened my mouth wide. How can you say such things? If Mr. Tom hears it, that would be terrible. Mary's face darkened, and she said coldly, I've already said that, Tom, and I do not have an improper relationship. Speaking of Tom, she also didn't know what was going on today. During the speech, his eyes were glued to her, and after getting off stage, he even gave her flowers. This way of getting along is like a couple in the passionate stage of their relationship, making her feel uncomfortable all over. I looked at Mary in front of me. Her indifferent expression was exactly like that of her 30-year-old self. If it were 18-year-old Mary, I would still feel a bit guilty. After all, she did help me a lot back then. But the person in front of me was clearly still the 30-year-old Mary, and naturally, I no longer felt even a trace of the remaining guilt in my heart. I still have the record, and if there are no issues, it'll be leaving. First, after saying that, I turned around and left without looking back. Behind me, Mary reached out to grab me, but I had already walked a short distance away, and she missed. After returning to the office and looking at the large pile of materials that needed to be organized and reviewed in front of me, I sighed helplessly. The results of the title evaluation just came out today. The good news is that I was promoted, but the bad news is that I have become busier. Fortunately, I have all the memories of my graduate school entrance exams and work. Otherwise, I would have to start learning various knowledge from scratch. I grab a handful of hair and bury my head to start working. After 2 days of such peaceful days, I have successfully adapted to the identity of a university professor and handled my work in an orderly manner. One day, while I was busy, I took a moment to chat with my students, and 2 little girls pulled me aside to gossip about the school teachers. Suddenly, Nicole mentioned that familiar name. Do you all remember Mary, the one from the last lecture? Another girl quickly nodded. I remember. What's wrong? Her assistant, Mr. Tom, confessed his feelings to her, but she rejected him. The girl covered her mouth in surprise. I thought those 2 were already together. Nicole smiled slightly and said, That's not true. It's just that they're too ambiguous, so everyone thinks they're a couple. The girl let out a long, "Oh," and said, Then why did Mary refuse Mr. Tom? I heard she treats Mr. Tom well, so she should like him too. Nicole smiled mysteriously. I don't know about that, but I've heard something previously. During a meeting, Mary zoned out, and when she came back to her senses, she started telling everyone that she was married, and even said she had a daughter this big. Nicole spoke while gesturing with her hands, so everyone guesses that she probably went crazy due to work stress. I raised my eyebrows. Is it really that exaggerated? Or is it true? Nicole quickly replied to me, Absolutely. My friend is an intern at that company. She saw it with her own eyes. Nicole suddenly paused, her gaze reluctantly shifting behind me. Mary. I was taken aback and turned around to see Mary had somehow come up behind me, gently nodding at me. Is Mr. George available? I have something to discuss with you. I followed Mary out the door and walked to the fence outside. I spoke with a hint of impatience. Go ahead. What do you want to say this time? Mary rested her hands on the railing, and unlike last time, there was no aggression in her eyes. This time I heard you got promoted. Congratulations. I hummed in response, answering her with a blank expression. Thank you. Seeing my indifferent attitude, she tugged at the corner of her mouth and said, teaching really suits you better. After all, I didn't want to chat with her about this meaningless nonsense, so I straightforwardly said, if there's nothing else, then I'll be leaving now. Having said that, I turned to leave when suddenly her sincere voice. I came from behind. I'm sorry, I paused, turning my head in shock to look at her. Mary lowered her gaze. I'm sorry, George. Your eyes are clean and bright at this moment, filled only with sincerity, just like her. At 18, I had a somewhat complicated expression and uncertainly asked her, do you remember everything? I remember now, she said, walking to my side and carefully grabbing my arm with both hands. All those things I've done for so long must have really hurt you, right? Her voice was cautious, even carrying a hint of self-reproach. I'm sorry, George. I have let you down. I calmly withdrew my hand from hers, tugged at the corner of my mouth to force a smile. It's fine. It's all in the past. No need to bring it up again. Besides, I'm doing quite well now. Mary pressed her lips together, and I asked her, is there anything else you need? She looked at me cautiously and then shook her head. My heart suddenly tightened. Today, she's just like the 18-year-old Mary. My tone unconsciously softened. I'll go to work first then. Mary nodded gently. She stood behind me, her gaze following me until my figure disappeared from sight. Mary hasn't come to find me for a long time, and I breathed a sigh of relief in my heart. This is quite good too. Mary once hurt me countless times, but now that she has become like this, I really find it hard to say anything harsh. Like I said, the best approach is indeed not to meet. Since I was promoted, my workload has increased significantly, and I have been working late into the night every day. Finally, on a work day, I successfully exhausted myself and proudly earned a little vacation. Okay, we will take care of what you asked us to do on time. You should rest these next couple of days, and we will get busy now. I hung up the phone, threw my phone onto the bedside table, and lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Suddenly, the doorbell rang abruptly, ringing several times in a row. Only then did I drag my weary body up and impatiently go to open the door. Who is it? As soon as I opened the door, I saw Mary standing in front of me, holding a large pile of medicines and various supplements. I heard you were sick, so I wanted to come and see you. I was utterly exhausted and had no strength to ask her where she heard the news, so I turned and said, "Come in." She gently closed the door and placed the medicine and supplements on the table, taking up more than half of it. "This is for treating a cold. This is for supplementing nutrition," she chattered on while pulling a whole hen out of her pocket. "This is for you to make soup to nourish your body, and I also brought mushrooms." I looked at her fully prepared setup and weakly waved my hand. "Thanks, but I don't have an appetite right now. I'm going to lie down for a bit." After speaking, I re-entered the room, turned into the bedding, and my nerves finally relaxed. My head was spinning, and Mary seemed to be sitting next to me, feeding me a pill. I swallowed, and in a daze I didn't know how long I'd slept. When I opened my eyes again, Mary was moving a stool and still sitting next to me. When she saw me wake up, she opened her mouth and made a hoarse sound. "You're awake. Do you feel better?" I nodded and asked her, "How long have I been asleep?" "Not long," she replied. I raised my eyebrows at her. "Have you been next to me all along?" She cleared her throat and said, "Are you feeling hungry now? My soup should be almost ready." The moment she locked eyes with me, the words of rejection were swallowed down. I supported myself with my palm and got up. "Then let me give it a try." Mary was very happy and joyfully served me a bowl of soup, then sat across from me, watching with delight as I took sip after sip of the soup she had made. "Yes, it's good to drink." I nodded, and the smile in her eyes became even more intense. Seeing that I finished drinking, she picked up my bowl again and said, "I'll go get you another bowl of soup." Just at that moment, Mary's phone suddenly rang. I took the bowl from her hand and said, "I won't drink the soup anymore. You answer the phone first." Mary answered the phone, and before she could turn down the volume, I clearly heard the voice on the other end. Mary, Tom is now drunk at the bar and insists on calling you to pick him up. Otherwise, you know. Mary did not hesitate at all and firmly refused. I'm busy right now, so y'all find a few more people to carry him back. After saying that, she hung up the phone without any hesitation. Seeing me looking at her, she immediately explained, I have nothing to do with Tom. She paused for a moment, knowing in her heart that she had never liked Tom, but she also didn't understand why she used to be so good to him and even did such excessive things for George. Mary carefully observed my expression, and seeing that I showed no sign of anything unusual, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. What else do you want to eat? We'll go make it for you. I shook my head. No need. You worked hard today, and it's getting late. You should head back to him. My tone was merciless as I urged her on, and Mary bit her lip, looking at me with some reluctance. George, do you really want to drive me away like this? I looked at her silently. She looked at me deeply, holding my hand tightly in her palm. George, won't you give me another chance? I swear this time I will treat you well, she swore while raising her finger to the sky. I looked at her, my thoughts a bit scattered. Mary is so good to me nowadays that it gives me an unnatural sense of unfamiliarity. She hasn't been this good to me for a long, long time. I looked at Mary in front of me, her face gradually overlapping with that of the 18-year-old Mary, suddenly reminding me of the Mary who coldly pushed me away to find Tom. Fragmented memories were swirling in my mind, and I looked at her somewhat dazed. Who exactly are you? She was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and raised the corners of her mouth. I am Mary. Yes, she's Mary. Whether she is 30 or 18, she is still her. I placed it on her heart, gazing at me affectionately. Would you be willing to give me another chance? Those eyes were sincere and full of intention. I looked at her and softly spoke, Sorry, I can't. Mary's smile froze at the corners of her mouth. Why haven't I been good enough for you to say it? I will definitely change. I pulled my hand out of her embrace and gently pushed her away. It's not any of that. Her gaze was intense. Why is that? I mocked myself with a slight smile, because even if it happened again, it would be repeating the same mistake. In fact, what you love is the excellent George, not the George who has become a full-time dad. Although 18-year-old George is timid, he excels academically. The outstanding George will make you admire him, and the excellent Tom will also catch your attention. Mary, in fact, you're not as deep in feelings as you think. Mary was taken aback and immediately retorted, Impossible. I love you very much. As if recalling something, her voice suddenly paused. I thought. I lowered my gaze and took 2 steps back. Even if I could do it all over again, the result would be the same. There's no need for that, Mary. I can live well on my own. She looked at me, then slowly lowered her gaze. This is the answer you gave me, right? I made a sound of acknowledgement, and she gave a bitter smile. Okay, I understand. She turned to leave, and the moment she stepped out the door, she suddenly looked back. This time it was you who rejected me, so I want to apologize, George. I wish you happiness. Looking at her departing figure, I softly replied, You too, Mary. After recovering from the illness, I immediately devoted myself wholeheartedly to work. With my persistent efforts, my social status has been rising, and my salary has been skyrocketing. Later on, I even donated to several female students to help them return to school. At work, there's still quite a few people pursuing me, and I chose a younger sister who is 3 years younger than me, and her appearance pleases me greatly. This time, I will no longer focus on love, but rather invest more in my work. After all, life is one's own. Only what is in one's own hands can be called happiness.